Welcome to Journeys Through Sociology, a series of interviews with presidents of the International Sociological Association. I'm Lalebe Bohanyan, and our guest today is Dr. Tike Umen, who was president of the ISA from 1990 to 1994. After completing his PhD in sociology at India's Pune University, Dr. Umen served as a professor of sociology for over 30 years at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Over the course of his career, he's done extensive research on professions, religion, and social movements, as well as contributing to the development of social theory, particularly in terms of critiques of Western sociology. Dr. Umen was president of the Indian Sociological Association, also spending many years as the editor of its official publication, the Sociological Bulletin. He has been a member of the board of directors of the International Institute of Sociology, as well as the Indian National Commission for UNESCO. He also served on the Prime Minister's high-level committee to study the social, economic, and educational status of the Muslim community in India. And in his capacity as chair of the Schumacher Center in Delhi, Dr. Umen has been actively working on projects on rural development and employment generation in India. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Umen.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. So,
Same.
Could we begin today, Dr. Umen, with just giving us a sense of how it is that you came to sociology, how you became interested in sociology and pursued it as a career?
Now, it's an amusing incident. It's a sheer accident which took me to sociology. I was flooded into sociology. Let me explain. I have done my first degree with 3 subjects, namely economics, political science, and history. Mm-hmm. And I was not interested in pursuing economics or history, but I wanted to do political science. Mm-hmm. But I'm told that political science is not a very good discipline in terms of getting job. You know, people of certain background look at higher education with an instrumental orientation. Mm-hmm. So I am told it's good to do social work, applied sociology, if you like.
Okay.
And I applied to 2 major institutions in India of social work. One is in the Delhi School of Social Work, it is called. The other is the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. Mm. I was interviewed for the Delhi school and offered admission with a tuition waiver. Mm. And that was in 1958. But till today, I have not received the letter saying that I am actually admitted. Then I was also called for interview in Mumbai, and I set out to go to Mumbai from Cochin. That is one of the towns in Kerala. I belong to Kerala. And when I reached Pune, a city about 5 hours distance by train from Mumbai, we were told that the train will not go because of a flash flood. We got off. And I had a conversation with one of the fellow passengers. And among other things, he said that there is a department of sociology and anthropology in Pune University. So since the station told me
so quite literally it was a flood. You weren't speaking metaphorically.
Exactly.
Yes.
He told me that the train will not go for the coming 72 hours. I went to the university, met some people, and finally got admitted in MA in sociology. Wow. That's how I entered sociology, wow. A sheer accident.
So even though it was accident that brought you to sociology, something clearly kept you in sociology for all these years and really motivated you to do so much work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, I am also a person who studied professions, medicine, Christian clergy, lawyers. And I found although people were not very clear as to whether or not they must pursue these professions, once they undergo what is called professional socialization, they get attached to that profession. So once I got into sociology and started reading sociology, I thought possibly I found what I ought to have found.
A way of understanding all of this, yes. So
that's right.
You know, the next question I'd like to ask you, Dr. Omen, is, you know, over the course of your career, and you've done work on many things, as you said, professions,
yes.
religion,
yes.
social movement, social theory. What are some of the challenges that you faced as a sociologist?
Well, the challenges one faces as a sociologist, or for that matter, anything, depends upon the conditions under which one is doing one's work. Now, when I started my work in sociology in the 1960s, the first thing was to find a job. And I could not find a job very easily. I had two professors in the department who were eligible as PhD supervisors. But one went to MIT in the US. The other went to Delhi in the Planning Commission as an advisor. So I couldn't find any supervisor in my own department. My first task was to find a place where I could do my PhD, because if you don't have a job, you take on the PhD on a temporary basis, putting on a mask for unemployment. So I searched far and wide, and I found a place which was just started with sociology, and I was admitted there. Having said this, let me tell you, the real challenge one faced at that point in time was the challenge between doing social anthropologically oriented work versus sociologically oriented work. You must note that India was under British colonialism for 200 years. And Indian sociology at that point in time was torn asunder between British social anthropology and American sociology. The typical subjects one studied was family, caste, kinship, religion, etc. But I was not inclined to study any one of them. So I have to find a place to study the kind of things I wanted to study. Incidentally, I studied a social movement, and that was the first study by an Indian sociologist of an ongoing movement, not a terminated movement, but a movement which was going on. Yes. And that was a big challenge for me. As sociology was an offspring of modernity, and social anthropology was a child of imperialism, there were many problems associated with the study of sociology at that point in time, and that is the kind of challenge I faced most.
So that's actually, you know, as you talk about your challenges, it's fascinating, Dr. Omen, because you talk about the conditions, the actual very material conditions in which a sociologist has to work, the historical conditions, you know, histories of legacies of colonialism and imperialism and how they shape the academic world that a sociologist has to maneuver in. And this kind of leads me to one thing I really hope that you will speak a bit about, the challenge of being one of only two people from the Global South to serve as president of the ISA, and the only sociologist from Africa and Asia to serve as president. And what do you see as the significance of that, or how was that a challenge for you?
You know, my acquaintance with ISA started in 1998. And I'm sorry, in 1985, because the World Congress of Sociology, the 11th World Congress of Sociology, happened in New Delhi. And 1 year before the Congress, which happened in 1986, I was designated as the Secretary General of the World Congress. That's how I started my interaction with ISA. And please remember, those days, sociology was by and large a Euro-American enterprise as a discipline at the world level via ISA. But even the 10th World Congress of Sociology, which happened in Mexico, Latin America, if you talk in terms of the third world countries, was by and large something which happened in the white world, the world of the whites, because Latin America is a transplantation of Spanish and Portuguese people. With the result that there was a continuity, although Latin America was certainly a third world country at that point in time. I don't know whether it has changed. So my first challenge was make it truly international, although we called it International Sociological Association. Whether sociology as a discipline was international was a very doubtful proposition at that point in time. So I did several things. ISA has two wings. One is the Association of the National Presidents. It is called ISA Council. The other is the Association of Research Council people. Now, the ISA presidents used to meet only at the time of the ISA congresses. That means they meet from one congress to another. By the time they change also, once in 4 years. I have started the practice of an ISA council meeting once in between the Congress. The Congress takes place only once in 4 years.
To increase interaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this meant the ISA presidents, who are actually the presidents, ISA council members, who are the presidents of national associations, got much greater opportunity to interact with ISA.
Yes.
And that I thought was an important step that I've taken in order to internationalize sociology, because the research council members were not elected by national associations. They were somewhat closed enterprises. And most of the people who were active those days in the research councils were from the first world. Neither the second world, certainly the third world people were not very much involved. So by bringing in the presidents of the national associations,
there was a true internationalization.
Yes, close to the ISA. I thought that was a step towards internationalization.
Yes.
The second thing was I have instituted a Congress site selection committee with under the chairpersonship of the programs vice president, because there's a programs vice president, research council vice president, etc. And that gave, for the first time, to think in terms of finding out appropriate locations all over the world. Otherwise, it was done informally. Discussions were between persons in West Europe and North America. And this also, in one sense, increased the visibility of ISA as an association.
In other parts of the world.
Yes. The third thing I did was Spanish as a language was added as the third official language of ISA. Earlier it was English and certainly French. But as you know, the entire continent of Latin America, with the exception of Brazil, are all Spanish speaking. And by bringing Spanish as an official language of ISA, I thought the scope of attracting more people, not speaking French or English, but knowing only Spanish.
Yes.
That also has...
And that seems to be something that the ISA has continued to try and develop by bringing in more and more languages as a way of truly internationalizing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And one more thing I did, and that was instituting a fund, an ISA fund. The idea was to collect money, and that fund can be utilized to facilitate people from the third world countries those days, or those who are not in a position to meet their expenses to come for the Congress. But I must say that has been a dismal failure.
That, I think, is a wonderful way to wrap up the story, because you began, Dr. Omen, talking about how the real kind of material conditions shape the way a sociologist works. So creating material opportunities for sociologists all over the world.
But let me add one more thing, which is I have created a subcommittee to revise ISA statutes and bylaws. Why? I was elected as a executive committee member in New Delhi after the World Congress. But nobody asked me whether I would like to be a member. They just elected. It was all very informal.
Without your consent.
Yes. When the election results were announced, I'm told I am a member of the ISA executive committee. I said, this is not the right way to do it. So I have instituted an ISA committee to revise statutes and bylaws. Please remember, ISA started in 1949, and this committee was instituted 47 years later. And we met in 1992, if I remember correctly, in a place called Gävle in Sweden in 1993. And the new statutes and bylaws as it exists today came into being on 1st January 1994.
So now nobody can be appointed to the executive committee without their knowledge.
Yes, that means there's a process. Somebody should propose, somebody should second, and the candidate should say, yes, I'm willing to serve ISA.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm trying to say is, although this could be seen as bureaucratization, a world organization, an international organization should have A, some minimum procedures, and B, some amount of transparency. And I think I have, by doing this, added to that.
So, Dr. Omen, I have just time for one last quick question today. You know, if we can, excuse me, we're going to have to disconnect, yeah. So, forgive us for that.
So let's go back to,
yeah, I'm going to continue now. They will edit out that brief technical error, and I will just continue with asking the last question. Is that good? Okay. So, yes? Okay. So, Dr. Omen, I have time for one final question today. You know, if we could maybe move away from sociology, and I can ask you, if you were not a sociologist, what else might you have liked to do?
Now, it's a very difficult question to answer, because one takes up things as it comes. As I told you, as my experience of entry into sociology was accidental. I would have liked to do political science, but some or other it didn't happen. I also told you. My mother wanted me to be a priest, a Christian priest, and I opted out of it. Can we continue?
Yes.
No?
So, I mean, it's interesting. So, if not neither a political scientist nor a priest, is there something else?
And my father wanted me to be in Indian bureaucracy. We say the Indian Administrative Service. I was not also inclined to do that. I had some talents in acting, and I bagged the first prize as the best actor in my college for enacting the role of Ophelia in Hamlet, the Shakespearean drama. But the family conservatism did not permit me to pursue that. So what I did was I started with sociology, and it is said a person with a certain deprived background, I'm a rural boy, you always find so many things which are not very good. And I find the abominable caste system, the grinding poverty, the oppressive patriarchy, all unacceptable. And I want to change these things. But as it said, I could not change these things. I could only analyze some of these things. And I think I have done most of my scholarly works are analyzing these kinds of problems. With the latest one, I'm writing a book on social inclusion in independent India, which means that even if I have not succeeded in changing the world, whatever little work I have done actually will be useful to transform Indian society, even if in a limited manner.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Oomen. It's been wonderful having this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been another Journey Through Sociology with Dr. T.K. Oomen. You can find the entire series of interviews on the website of the International Sociological Association.